Yeah, Rich Jason, and welcome back to another Primal The Awakening unboxing for our monsters. So we went through a couple of videos, went through the rules, the tokens, the hunters, and now we went through some of the monsters. So we're going to hop into the coral monsters this time. If you want a brief review on how the monsters work, like what their card symbols mean, how their turn works, jump back into the first couple minutes of the fire monster video. It will be linked in the description. I'm not going to re-go through it in every video here, but so let's hop in. So for coral, we have two different ones. We have Korowon, who is a giant crab type monster. Definitely cool. And then he has a weakness to horn, lightning, acid, and feather. So I mean, horn, I guess maybe like hardened stuff. Lightning, water, obviously kind of makes sense. Acid's a little interesting. Feather, I did not kind of expect that, but that's kind of interesting. Maybe because you're thinking like a water and bird type of idea. That could be. And then the other one we'll go through is Orouxen, who's our dragon type for the water, for the coral type. He's got whole, like, electric-y bubbles on him. Interesting. So we'll see him. So he's weak to crystal, lightning, and feather. So yeah, not really exactly getting tricked. The feather idea is supposed to be here. Lightning makes sense. And crystal, I think, kind of like, you like horn just being something hard. They don't have anything special on their boards, but they do have theirs. So here is Korowon. So these big, giant, like, crab monsters got coral over them. These are super detailed. Let me scoot these off to the side quick. Ooh, I messed up the angle on them. You know, this carapace on the bottom. Here you have his lines there for his front side, but he's got his big giant, like, claw pincers. But then he's also got this big giant shell, which is really neat too. And like the little spiny legs. But it's kind of odd though. He only has like the two little like crab legs to hold all that big massiveness up. Neat. And then there's like another colored picture of him. Cool. So let's hop into what he does. So if we're going to start that off, we're going to have a water token. So obviously being water guys, they're going to have water tokens out on their board when you play against them. And I'm sure they're going to reference them at some point. Water, just as a reminder, says, when you're a sector with water terrain, your sequence is limited to 3 instead of 5. So you have to imagine this is kind of being like waist-deep water, so you can't do as much. Like, you can still attack and stuff, and you can move quick, because you could say, oh, they could kind of like swim through it. So this isn't like ankle-deep puddle water. This is supposed to be if like the entire sector is flooded. The other thing that will happen potentially, and I don't know if it'll happen in this set for sure, but if they ever get set on fire, they turn into fog. If you're in a sector with fog, you become threatened. Just also note the water modifier. Your standard sequence does not prevent any card ability or other game effect from increasing your limit. So if you have something that would give you plus extra 1, so you normally have 5 and it would give you 6, now it would give you 4 instead of 3. And then water spread. If you cannot place more than 1 water terrain in each sector, if you're instructed to place a water terrain in a sector that has one, place it in each adjacent sector instead. So yeah, they might start with one area that's filled with water, and then they might somehow produce more water, or like you could say they spilled enough water and they're spilling over to the other areas. And they're just double-sided. Cool. Alright, so without further ado, let's hop in and look at Korowon's stances. So for prologue level, we have 2 threat, 1 damage. At the start of the round, advance the round marker by 1 unless all players reveal a blue card from their hand. Oh boy. So he's going to speed up the round right off the bat. Hopefully everyone has one. You don't have to discard anything, you just have to reveal it. But yeah, if for some reason one player doesn't have one, then it's going to advance it. So that could be very tricky. See, the only way to get past that is just defeat him as quickly as possible. When he hits stance 2, he has no wounds or toughness. While his stance is active, you cannot convert damage into wounds. So there's going to be some other thing, probably like his objective, I imagine, is going to be a way to do that. So basically, like, you hit him enough, he's going to cocoon up into his shell, is the idea. And you won't be able to hit him. You can still play cards, you just can't do damage to him. And then stance 3. When revealed, place a water crate in each sector. So then when you get there, now it's going to be harder. So at the beginning of the game, he's going to try and advance the rounds quicker. Stance 2, he's going to hide himself so you can't hurt him. And then stance 3, he's going to make everything full of water so you can play less cards. So he's going to be kind of tricky. Let's see what level 1 does. So level 1 says just higher toughness. At the start of the round 1, advance the round marker by 1 unless all players reveal a blue card. In stance 2, while he's active, he cannot convert damage into wounds. And then stance 3 is when revealed, place a water terrain in each sector, max 1 per sector. So same thing for both of those. Alright, level 2. He has 13 toughness. He has resistance. And yes, at the start of round 1, advance the round marker by 1 unless all players reveal a blue card from their hand. Resistance, as a reminder. When you complete a stance, the resistance tier do not carry excess damage over to the next stance. So what this basically does is, if you know that on stance 2 he shells himself and you can't convert any more wounds, this is going to kind of prevent you from like stacking a ton of damage in one hit right towards the end before he switches stances. Crazy. I grabbed the wrong stack. There we go. In stance 2, he's going to do the same thing. He's going to shell up. Cannot convert wound damage to wounds. He still hurt you, though. He doesn't care. And then stance 3 says when revealed, place a water crane in each section. So basically the same thing. Usually, prologue's a little bit easier. Then 1 and 2 tend to be about the same abilities. And then 3 usually gets a little bit crazier. So in stance 1 for level 3, he has resistance, 20 toughness. Start of round events, at the start of round 1, advance the round marker by 1 unless all players reveal a card from their hand. So, oh yeah, it's only for round 1, right? Might have just been not missing it. Yeah. So that's not so bad. It's just the first round. It's not every round. I thought it was just at the beginning of every round. I'm like, that's going to be crazy. So if it only does it once, that's not terrible. For stance 2, cannot convert damage to wounds. Those all stay the same. Let's see if stance 3 changes it. Nope, same thing. So basically, he stays the same no matter what level. He's just going to get harder to beat because he'll have more toughness. So it's not too bad. I mean, I don't think you have to have every single monster has to have their own crazy unique things in every single thing. He does what he needs to do. He advances around quicker, potentially, and then he huddles up, and then he places water. What are his peril cards? So on the easy side for stance 1, we have Life Spring. When a behavior card with water cycle is revealed, Korowon heals 3 damage. Ooh. Luckily, this doesn't have permanent, so this will go away when he changes to stance 2. But that's going to make that kind of hard. Because he can keep healing back up, so it'll be harder to flip him to stance 2. And then the harder version, now he heals 5. For stance 2, he is immune to blind. At the end of the round, Korowon heals himself half the current damage sustained. Oh boy, and this is also like currently sustained. So if he has any damage on him, like, it's not going to turn into wounds, but it's going to sit on him, but he's going to slowly heal all that damage until it doesn't matter anymore. Blind, again, means that you choose a peril card and play it is considered to be blank. So you can't, stop this card from working. On the harder side, he has same thing. End of the round, heals half the damage currently sustained. So this basically means that when he hits stance 2, if he has damage on him already and hasn't converted to a wound for whatever reason, he's going to keep healing it. That's crazy. And then level and stance 3, he has immune to blank. Raging Tide, Unleash, advance the round marker by 1. So I believe that means it only triggers when he does Unleash, which obviously makes sense. Being that keyword, I'm going to just double check to always make sure, because I don't a lot of keywords in this game. That's what they really almost should have done. It would have been a neat way if we could have had some of these, like, here's monster only keywords, here's hunter only. Like, the hunters have their cards that have them on the back for most of them. They should have just had, like, a generic one for that fits every character. Same thing with monsters. Some of these would have been nice to just have a special card. Unleash ability triggers when the monster unleashes. So if he does unleash, he'll advance the round marker by 1. Luckily, though, at least so far, he doesn't have anything to, like, help gain struggle counters. So that's not too bad. And then his last ones are basically the same thing. Crazy. Then let's look at his objective. So this is in stance 2 when he shows up. It says, Shellbreaker Assault. Play a red card. If you're in the rear sector, place a counter on this card. When there are 2 per player counters on this card, advance to stance 3 and convert damage to wounds. Then remove this card from the game. Cool. So this is basically what's going to happen the way this is essentially going to work. You're going to hit him a lot in round 1. You're going to hope to do a ton of damage to him before he switches to stance 2, because then nothing will carry over. And you can keep damaging him. There's nothing that says you can't damage him. They're just not going to actually wound him. His shell is just going to absorb the hits, absorb the hits, absorb the hits. But then he's also in stance 2 going to keep healing half of that every turn. So the higher you can get him on there, then what you can finally do, though, is you have to activate this enough times to flip him to stance 3 and all that extra damage you had on there. Even if you don't have any damage on him, you're still going to have to complete this to flip him from stance 2 so he can eventually take wounds. But guys can keep hurting him in the meantime. And they will when they play red cards, hopefully. And the harder side is the same thing, just 3 per player. Cool. That's a neat little effect, right? So you have to specifically get behind him, and then you have to do this. So we're going to see if his behavior cards are going to do anything to affect that. Like, maybe they're going to turn him, or maybe they'll give him more healing abilities. Something like that. I mean, water, like, when you look at the armor and stuff, tends to go with a lot of healing. So it kind of makes sense that the monsters would heal too, doesn't it? And we'll see if them water cycle cards do as well. Alright, so let's hop into those. So our first ones is we're going to have, if you're in the front sector, he's going to do something nasty to us, I'm sure. Destructive Strike. The active player suffers attack unless they discard a defense card from their hand. Okay, that's not too bad. Sucks losing a card, but oh, the harder one's even worse though, because they will suffer it unless they discard specifically a yellow parry card. So that does make it a little bit harder to beat. Crazy. All right. Next up, we have if you play a card with an aggro symbol. If you aggravate him, he's going to shelter. The active player is in the front sector. Quan gains -1 struggle per player. Otherwise, Quan turns to the active player unless that player discards a blue card from their hand. So, like, this is where stance 2 would be kind of an issue, because you play an aggro card on him, which a lot of probably red attack cards are, a decent amount I'm sure are. Because you're actively trying to hurt him, he's going to possibly turn towards you. Now the rear sector's on the other side. So now your character has to figure out how to move all the way around to the other side unless someone's on the other side to attack him. Unless you play one of those discard one of them blue cards. And then the harder one, instead of -1 struggle, now he gains 1 struggle per player. Which this could also be bad for level 3 when you could potentially get that Unleash ability. Alright, then we have two different symbols here. We have on the easier one, we have during the attrition phase, or if someone takes attrition damage, and then the other one's just a rampage. So the other one's going to hit a trigger anytime another card activates. So let's see what the attrition one is. We have Tidal Wave. Korowon gains 1 struggle for each player in a sector with water. Okay, so again, he's going to get to that end, puts water in every single area, and he's going to try and do his Unleash ability. This is going to help him do that. The voice of the monster reverberates on the surface of the water and summons the strength and violence of the waves. Ooh, so it's like he's shouting. That's cool. Then the harder version, he gains 1 struggle for each player in a sector with the water terrain. So same ability, but it's going to activate more often, which definitely makes it harder. Alright, and then we have 2 more during the attrition phase. During the attrition phase, or is it when they take attrition damage? I'm going to assume it's when they take attrition damage. I just want to make sure I say that right. Nope, at the end of the attrition phase. So it doesn't matter if they took damage or not. So at the end of the attrition phase, these will activate. Now, not really any way you can block those. Pincer. The active players in a sector with a water terrain, they're immediately captured unless they reveal a green card from their hand. If another player is already captured, the active player suffers an attack instead. Ooh, capture is a fun ability. So let's see what the other one does, and then I'll read what captured does. It's kind of cool. He's going to grab you with his claws. So the harder ones, active players in a sector of the water terrain immediately capture unless they discard a green card from their hand. So the difference is revealing versus discarding. Alright, what does capture do? I'm going to grab the book here. When you are captured, perform the following steps. Discard all cards from your hand and your sequence. Place your hunter miniature on the monster board. Skip your end your turn, skip any phases, or end of steps. Pass to the next player. So basically, you get captured, you lose your turn. When captured, you skip the consume phase at the start of the round. You cannot draw cards or be the target of any game effects until the start of your next turn. At the start of your next turn, perform the following steps in order. Place your hunter miniature in the front sector. Drop to your hand size. Suffer damage equal to your weapon level. Discard the top 2 cards of your deck. If an attack is discarded, this way, play your turn normally. Otherwise, skip your turn. No, you cannot have more than 1 player captured at a time. If a player would be captured when another player is already captured, the player that would otherwise become captured instead suffers damage equal to their level instead. Note, there's only 1 player standing. That player becomes captured. Follow the instructions for being captured and continue the game as normal. So it ends your turn. And then you skip the consume at the beginning of your next round. And then you have to, you basically escape. You drop in front of them. Draw your hand back up. Suffer damage, which sucks too. Discard top 2 cards of your deck. If there's an attack this way, you play normal, skip your turn. I'm not really sure what the relevance there is. Is it maybe like, it's showing like you attack, so you hit him, and that's why you broke free from the claw or however he grabbed you? If it's you draw like a defense card, is it like he threw you or something, like he tossed you off to the side maybe? But yeah, so you think about this, right? If this hits at the end of the attrition phase, so again, you can't avoid it because it's not if you took attrition damage, it's just at the end of the attrition phase. So if you can't reveal or discard a green card, you're going to get captured. And then you're going to suffer attack, and then you also suffer your sword battle too. But God, that's crazy. Because that's going to immediately end your turn, so awesome. Alright, this is if he moves to a different area. If he rotates at all, this one will activate. And this one is going to say Crushing Claws. If there is water terrain in the front sector, each player in that sector suffers an attack unless they reveal a yellow card. So I just imagine, like, all this water thing is like, again, it's not like you're in, like, knee-deep water. You're in like waist-high or maybe chest-high water. Like you're kind of struggling. Or just imagine like you're in enough area where like he's popping out of the water to attack you, essentially. This is the same thing, except they get suffer attack +1. Cool. And again, by the time they hit that level 3, oh, we got a new symbol, water symbol. So my guess this means if someone is in a water space at the end of the turn, or the beginning of the turn, probably. Let me get right to that page, if I can find it. And I skipped it. The water symbol, which is not shown. Oh, trigger at the start of a player's turn in a sector with water. Cool. So if they start in a sector with water, which again sounds like he's going to do an awful lot of. Korowon turns to the active player. That player suffers attack unless they reveal a yellow card. So basically, he's gonna like. Again, I think this is ferocious water. I think this is kind of like the idea of him like popping out of the water and attacking you. Here we have a card with that water cycle trait, and then I have to discard a yellow card instead. Yeah, so it's like these water things. It's like if you're in somewhere with water, or if it's in water in that sector, he's popping out of the water to attack you. So that's why you have to play like a dodge or a parry card to avoid it. Because it's kind of like he's popping out to attack you, so he's surprising you. So again, another one if you start at water. Also just a thing to like, let's see if this is what I think happens. So the previous one is 4. These ones are 3. So you can kind of tell them apart if you eventually learn them all, but good luck learning all these. Ocean Rumble with Water Cycle. Korowon gains 1 struggle per player. The active player then suffers an attack unless they reveal a green dodge from their hand. Korowon shines with a light and regains its strength. Could a human ever possess its power? Yeah, we're going to beat this crap out of him. We're going to chop him up and I'm going to get a water sword out of him. The harder one, he gains 1 struggle, and then it said just discard. That's usually the difference between some of those, is revealing versus discarding. We have, if you play an attack card, a red one. He is going to Abyssal, Abyssal, it's a weird word, Abyssal Wrath. Like Abyss. Abyssal, maybe? Abyssal Wrath. The active player becomes threatened. If that player is in a sector with water terrain, trigger the behavior cards for each water in reaction. Oh boy. So he threatens you, and then if there are other water, you don't have to wait till the start of your turn. You're just going to activate it immediately. Oh, that could suck, because we just seen 4 of them. We saw 2 of them, I guess. Probably only have 2 at a time. Same thing, except now he also gains 1 struggle. Crazy. Alright, then his last card is If You Move. If you move, he is going to have spinning. Korowon turns to the active player unless the top card of that player's discard pile is an attack card. And then the other version is the same thing, except that's to specifically be a blue card. Awesome. Yeah, so he has some really neat effects. Like his, he's going to play a lot with putting that water out, which once he hits stance 3, he's going to have water out. So once you hit stance 3, he's going to become even harder because there'll be water in every terrain. And then, yeah, other than that, he's going to be like lots of stuff where he's going to be trying to just mess with you a bunch. I want to look at his boards quick. Yeah, so if you're doing like Expedition here, he starts with 2 water coming out already. So he's already a 50-50 chance on one of the 2 Expedition modes that he is going to have water out. So he's going to be triggering that stuff 50% of the time anyhow. So he's already nasty, but then when he hits that, he's going to be able to do it even more. Yeah, so that's definitely fun. He looks like he's going to be an interesting character to play. He has some healing abilities, some defensive abilities. Cool. Alright, up next we have our water dragon. Orouxen. Hopefully he's coming out of like a waterfall. That's really neat. So I'm going to just slide these off to the side for the moment so we can look at him in all his big giant glories. So he's like a 4-winged dragon. But he's got like, look at them, like things on his tail. Got like six of them. Plus extra little floppy one there. So you looks like he's definitely like he's a water dragon. Like he's gonna be in the water swimming around like a shark. So we'll see if that gets that. He's got the little like gilly things on his face. Yeah, he's definitely, I think he's gonna cause him. Now we'll see if he somehow produces fire like the other dragons. If he does, again, we're gonna have that fog effect, which is gonna be pretty crazy. Alright, but let's hop in and look at our stances. So if we look at Prologue, stance 1, he has 2 toughness. At the start of round 1, all players take the ability card from their reserve and add it to their hand. Okay, so he has a special deck of cards called Ability. So we're going to put one of those up quick. You're going to get a giant stack of this. So each hero is going to have 4 copies. So 4 for the shield, 4 for the hammer, 4 for the bow, and then 4 for the sword. And then when you buy the expansion characters, they will each get 4 as well. So everyone will have 4 copies. But it says at the start of your action phase, place this card into your sequence. It says at the start of the round, all players take a ability card and add it to their hand. So what's this overall doing? So I'm sure there's going to be other things he's probably going to have. They are going to trigger. Oh, sorry. They're going to trigger if this is in play. But my guess is right off the bat, this essentially works kind of like a wound. Except the wound just goes in your hand and clogs up your hand. This actually clogs up your sequence, because you can only play 5 sequence cards unless you're in water. You can only play 3. So now this is going to knock you down 1 more, because it's automatically going to be start of your turn. You have to put this card into your sequence if it's your hand. So you lose. You can't play opening cards, or you don't get the opening effects because this is already played. And then if you're not in water, you only have 4 more cards to play. If you're in water, you only have 2. So you can definitely tell this is going to make this guy a struggle to beat. And the fact is you can get up to 4 of them, potentially, but we'll see how it gets, because it says take from their reserve and add it to their hand. So at the beginning of the game, you're automatically going to start with 1. But I'm sure he's going to have other things that mess with that as well. So in stance 2, we have, when revealed, Orouxen gains +1 damage till the end of the round. So he has little one-time effects, which aren't overall terrible then. And then stance 3, when revealed, a player in a sector with water terrain suffers damage. So yeah, he's gonna hit you immediately as soon as that hits. So yeah, it's not the worst, because at least they're one-time effects. They jump out and they do something. In level 1, stance 1, start of round 1, all players take an ability card from their reserve, add it to their hand, same thing. Stance 2, gets +2 damage till the end of the round. And then stance 3, player in a sector with water, players in sectors with a water terrain suffer attack. Yeah, that's crazy. Because I'll hit anyone in any water, and I'm going to guess, much like Korowon, he probably starts with 2 water in his encounter sectors. Now his encounter sector, expedition layouts are not necessarily the same as the campaigns. Yeah, so he starts with 2 in each of theirs too. So again, it's a 50-50 shot that you're going to automatically be in one. And he'll probably have other cards that play stuff, I would imagine. Alright, level 2. All players add a ability card from the reserve to their hand. He gets, in stance 2, he gets +3 attack till the end of the round. And then in stance 3, all players in a sector with water suffer damage. Cool, so that didn't really change anything there, just the one keeps getting harder and harder. Level 3 is usually the difficult one. Start of the round 1, players take the ability card from the reserve add to their hand. That stays the same. Stance 2, when revealed, he gets +4 attack and is unstoppable until the end of the round. Oh boy, he becomes unstoppable. That's never a good thing. Unstoppable says, each time a behavior card is triggered, the monster gains 1 struggle after the card has been resolved. It's only until the end of the round, but that means you're going to want to try and trigger as few things as you can. And then stance 3, player sector takes a damage. But what's that, 6 damage? Just for being in a sector with water? Ugh, that is nasty. Alright, what are his peril cards? Toxic Vapor for stance 1. At the start of the round, each threatened player must either take an ability card from the reserve, add it to their hand, or discard a blue card. Ooh, yeah, so do you really have to need that blue card for something? Do you really need it for a trigger a sequence? Or, you need it to defend for attrition, or whatever. Otherwise, you have to take an ability card. And the fact that it goes in their hand means you're going to have it at the beginning of your next turn, or I don't think you can play it outside your turn. I'll check the rules on that in a minute. Harder one is at the start of the round, each threatened player must either take an ability card from reserve, add to their hand, or discard a card. That's even worse. I think the other one was, it was discarded. So that's still bad, right? In stance 2, he has a permanent. Abyssal Fury. I don't like that word. At the start of the attrition phase, if the active player is in a sector with water, they get a disrupt token. Disrupt tokens go on your defense cards during the attrition phase, is essentially canceling them out. So it makes you basically have to have 2 attrition to stop any damage. And then he has permanent Infuriate 5, 9, and 15. At the start of the attrition phase, the active player in the sector with water crane takes a disrupt token. So Infuriate is when they're gaining struggle at the beginning of the round during the monster upkeep. Monster gains 1 struggle per player. They also will gain either 5, 9, or 15, or they'll gain 1, 2, or 3 if the collective of all players has 5, 9, or 15 red Argo cards in their hands. So between the 2, 3, 4 players, if enough players have at least 5 of those symbols showing, then he gains 1 extra. He has 9, he gains 2 extra. If they have 15, he gains 3. So it's not terrible, but it's still any amount you're giving your monster extra stuff is never good. And then level 3, he has immune to blind. And then when Orouxen suffers a wound, place a water card in the active player's sector and advance the marker by 1. Oh boy. Yeah, putting out more water, because then again, he starts with 2. Adding another one is not going to be helpful at all. And plus advancing the round marker is going to be even crazier. And then his level 3 is, he has immune to blind, Infuriate, 5, 9, 15, suffers a wound, place water in a sector, and advance the marker by 1. Alright, so I do want to just look at this really quick again. Just like wound cards, the ability cards clog up a player's deck. In addition to stated text, you must place them in your hand in your sequence at the start of your turn. They counter your sequence limit as if they're action cards. When you discard action cards in your sequence, during your end step, discard all ability cards as well. Note, at the end of the scenario, all players must remove all ability cards or deck, just for wounds. Yeah. So they just sitting there. If you have something that lets you just discard any card for some reason, you could probably discard that, but I don't think there's too many of those. Our objective is Tame the Waters, but this doesn't trigger till stance 3. When Orouxen... when Orouxen suffers a wound, players on the plateau may pay 1 stamina to perform a riding check and prevent the Call of Deep peril card from being triggered. Cool. So you can hop up on top of the monster and do a riding check, which is a neat idea. I'm going to look at the other side quick, because it probably says the same thing. When he suffers a wound, player on the plateau may pay 2 stamina for a riding check. What is Call of the Deep again? That was our third one, right? So he suffers a wound. So basically you can negate that from happening. How do riding checks work? As a reminder, if I can find it. Let's see here. While you're instructed to perform a riding check, reveal the top card of the attrition deck and the top card of your action deck. Compare the attrition value revealed with the number of stamina icons on the revealed card. If the number of stamina is equal to or higher than the attrition value, deal your weapon damage to the monster and choose a sector on the board to place a visual or suffering attack and place your miniature in the front. Discard both cards. So it's not actually too terrible. So we saw the attrition deck in the at the beginning of that fire video when I went over the monster cards. Of the cards, I think there's 5. There's a 0 and there's 5 1s. Every card is going to have at least 1 stamina. So you have generally a little over a 50-50 shot of always gaining equal to. The only thing you have to worry about is I think there's 2 2s and a 3. Or maybe there's 3 2s and a 3. So there's a little bit of extra. So again, it's the other half. It's like 40%-ish. That you might get it. But if you have a 2, you're probably pretty much fine. So yeah, doing a riding check, basically you hop on top of them, do damage to them, very most likely, and you also just stop this, so that way you're doing damage to them, they're going to suffer a wound if they don't do this effect. So that's kind of cool. Very helpful. Alright, then if we jump into our behavior cards, we have at the end of the attrition phase. Ooh, he's going to like the attrition phase, especially if that stance 3 stuff. We have absorption. If the active player suffers attrition damage during this turn, they take a D-ability card from the reserve and place it on top of their discard pile. Boost 1, he heals 2 damage. Oh boy. And then the harder version is active players suffer attrition. They take a D-ability and place it on top of their discard. If he has 2 boosts, he heals half the damage it currently sustains. So yeah, it could definitely be even worse to fight against. I do like though that the ability card goes on their discard, so it might take depending on how full your deck is, it could take a while for it to get back to you. At least that's not too terrible. We have a Splishy Splash card. So I'm guessing this, if you move onto a water token, you make a noise, and he's like, hey, look, there's a guy over there. A player moves into a sector with water terrain. Instead of at the start of the turn, you know what some of the other water ones do. Oh, drop that one. We have Roar of the Sea. Orouxen gains -1 struggle per player. Each player in the front and flank sectors become threatened unless they reveal a blue card from their hand. And the harder one is going to gain 1 struggle per player, and they have same thing. So basically, here's when he's kind of like flaps his wings and his head around, and he's going to try and threaten you. We have another water one here. And that one is Ocean Wing. The active player suffers an attack unless they pay 1 stamina. Orouxen's wings strike like the waves of the tempestuous sea. Is this going to tell you have to pay 2? Is going to be my guess. Oh no. Each player in the flank sector suffers an attack unless they pay one stamina. Targeted players that are threatened suffer damage times 2 instead of times 1. Oh, okay. So instead of just the active, it's going to be players in the flank section. But the difference there, though, is that might not be the active player. But it could potentially hit more. And then threatened players actually suffer more damage. So he's going to like threatening people. Attrition phase. Yeah, he's hitting into this attrition phase pretty hard. We have Abyssal Whale. Each player suffers an attack unless they discard a card from their hand. Resolve the boost effect of this card only if Orouxen suffer damage this turn. Interesting. And then 1 boost, Orouxen is unstoppable until the end of the round. And then the harder one is each player suffers damage +1 unless they pay 1 stamina. So discarding is almost the same as paying a stamina, basically. Because you have to pay a stamina that, but you could have a stamina token, you know. Each targeted player in a sector with a water train must pay 2 instead to prevent damage. Aha. And then resolve the boost only if he would suffer damage. Just turn 1 boost, he's unstoppable till the end of the round. If you are in the front sector, he is going to have a title strike. Gains -1 struggle per player. The active player suffers attack unless they play a defense as the first card in the sequence this turn. Interesting. Because, like, how would you know that, right? Yeah, play a card first. I guess just if you start in front of him. And then the harder one is the same thing, except he's ×2 damage unless they play a green card specifically. Ooh. Triggers on a defense. Surge of Healing. A dazzling light, like that of a star, suddenly envelops Orouxen's body. Its roar gets more vigorous, and its wounds begin to heal. 3 boosts. Orouxen heals all the damage it currently sustains. If it currently sustains no damage, heal a wound instead. Oh boy. He gets to heal his full health if he has no damage. He almost gonna always keep someone with the damage on him. Then his harder one is it only costs 2 boosts to do the same thing. So it'll trigger more often. Awesome. If you start in a water sector, we are going to trigger the Poisonous Water. Increase the stamina cost of your movements by 1 this turn. Threatened players in the active player sector suffer 1 damage. A damage +1. Great. You're going to be harder to get out of his way. Awesome. Ooh, that's a lot of text. Increase the stamina cost of your movements by 1 this turn. Threatened players in the active player sector suffer an attack +1. If the active player does not move during their movement, they take a D-ability card from the reserve and place it on top of their deck. Nice. Another way to play them D-ability cards. Ooh, we have this. So if anyone is in the rear sector, not necessarily the active player, but anyone's back there, he has Wave's Wrath. The active player suffers an attack unless the top card of their discard pile is a blue card. You're probably going to get hit most of the time by that. I like though it's also whoever's in the rear is going to hit the active player. Lots of times these are like the active player triggers it and hits somebody else. And then if he has a boost, he turns towards the active player. Cool. He did not do a fire attack, though. I'm surprised. I thought he might. And creates some fog. The active player suffers 1 attack +1 unless the top card of the discard pile is blue. And then 1 boost. Turns the active player. That player cannot be assisted this turn. And then the final 2 cards with a defense trigger. our dominance. Orouxen gains 1 struggle per player. The monster roar creates ripples on the surface of the water and echoes ruthlessly like a wave on the rocks. Is the harder one going to do more? It sure is. 1 struggle per player. The front sector players in the front sector become threatened. Cool. So that's neat. Yeah, he gets this. His big thing is his D-ability cards. They're going to mess up your deck and your sequence, plus along with the water doing that. And then his peril cards. He does play a lot with the attrition phase. He likes to threaten you, which means you're going to draw, if you're threatened during the attrition phase, you have to draw 2 cards. He has stuff where he makes you threatened a lot more often. He does stuff that activates during the attrition phase. You can't really avoid. Like, you can avoid an attack card or a move card or starting on this or moving to the water area by just not doing them things. You can't avoid, you can't generally avoid end of the turn effects or attrition, end of attrition step, because they're just going to happen. They're phases in the game. You can kind of maybe not really, if he has to be in a certain position, like if you're in front of him, because that kind of depends on if he gets a card on somebody else's turn that turns him. But that's still pretty crazy. Yeah, but he seems like he'd be very interesting to fight. I did want to just point out one other quick thing before we end this, is for Korowon. I just realized this when I was just going through Orouxen's deck. None of his cards have boosts. He does have some stuff for doing unleash effects, but he has no boosts. So that means that his unleash effects are going to trigger more often because he won't be constantly spending them on boosts. That's the whole thing with them guys, right? They'll keep, they gain a struggle per player at the beginning of the round, but then if they draw a card, they might have to play 2 or 3 of them, which will then drop them down a couple. Because you have to have 3 per player to unleash. He's just going to keep building them up until he unleashes. He has no way of spending them. So unless you're actively constantly playing blue cards to get rid of them, he's just going to keep increasing because he's never going to spend any. So it's definitely crazy as well. Alright, that's what we have for our 2 coral or water monsters. Hope you guys are enjoying these. Check out the other monsters and all the hunters if you have not. We'll be hopping in. We got a few more monsters in the core set. And then we will start hitting into the expansions and the campaign and then the expansions. Hope to see you guys there. Bye.